VCTC and of all the emergency responders and partner agencies, I regret I cannot join you in today's meeting. In December, Caltrans released its new department strategic plan, and that's the slide we have up here. We now have both a vision statement, quote, a thriving and connected California, end quote, and a new mission of, quote, improving lives and communities through transportation, end quote. We look forward to achieving our goals of safety, equity, climate action, prosperity, and employee excellence within the projects, programs, and services that we provide to Ventura County. Of note on the project list are 3 projects in design. That might be the next, well, I think the project list you've all received. I think you can go to the next slide, Steve. Thanks. The 3 projects are design project number 31, and that would be in the report project that was mailed out to you earlier. The SR, the State Route 1 pedestrian hybrid beacon installation at Neptune's Net. The contract award to Polo Engineering was just approved. And today, January 10th, Caltrans is holding the pre-construction meeting. While the schedule is only 90 working days, there are electrical poles in this project that require a long lead time for procurement. Striping of the Continental Crosswalk will proceed after the installation of signs and signals. Design project number 26, State Route 33, pavement project with a road diet alternative in Ojai. The draft environmental document, EAIS, will be released to the public by February 2025, and a public hearing will be scheduled shortly after the start of the circulation period. Design project number 23, State Route 118, Arroyo Simi Bridge suicide fence. We expect the project to be advertised this month, January, and construction will begin this spring 2025. Again, please reach out to me at any time, and please stay safe. So if anybody has any follow-up questions for Director Roberts, please either reach out through me to her, and I know she would have liked to be here. So, okay, I'll go right to the Executive Director's report then. Thank you, Chair LeVere. You have your Executive Director's report in front of you. Can we go to the first slide? Here we go. Of note, we are, as we have done in previous years, we have a few what we call free fare days that we use some of our state LC top funding for. And Transit Equity Day is going to be February 4th, and that's kind of an important day in public transit. It marks the birthday of Rosa Parks, the mother of the civil rights movement. And on that day, all Ventura County operators will be offering free rides, as we have done in the past. And Metrolink will also be offering on free rides on Transit Equity Day. Next slide. And as we've done for several years now, our Boys and Girls Club partner poster contest, the artwork that's created by members of Ventura County clubs and decorates the side of the VCTC buses. You may have seen it on the buses as they're driving by. This is the 6th year now of this contest and project, and it's been very successful. The theme: journeying through our community, exploring Ventura County by bus. I love it, especially as the former transit director, very timely. And we also have a short video that we'll show right now, I believe, with that. So always exciting to see this one of our many partnerships we have with the Boys and Girls Club. I want to add that VCTC staff visited the Santa Paula and Oxnard Port Hueneme clubs to present the Youth Roadshow, and that's a PowerPoint presentation that we've put together to help encourage youth to ride, and this obviously is a great part of that program. I also wanted to note, obviously, the fires this week has been so impactful and affected so many people. Transit has been quite involved here in Ventura County, although thankfully we haven't received the brunt of the fire. And I wanted to ask our transit director, Claire Grasky, if she'd come up and give a little update on just how VCTC, both our contract operators, RATP Dev and MV Transit, have been helping, as well as all the transit operators that work through the Emergency Operations Committee, of which Claire sits on at the EOC. So thank you, Claire.
Thank you. I just want to thank all of the Ventura County operators. So in response to the Kenneth fire last night, VCTC and many operators supported Thousand Oaks Transit, who provides service to the city of transit service to the city of Agora Hills, in evacuating an assisted living facility there. So vehicles were sent by Thousand Oaks, Gold Coast Transit, Simi Valley, Valley Express, VCTC, Ventura Transit System has been back. Camarillo was also on call to provide if additional vehicles were needed or if we needed to respond to any other evacuation requests. In total, there were 121 people who needed to be evacuated, so quite a large number. 55 of which were in wheelchairs, which increases the amount of vehicles that are requested, since most vehicles have two wheelchair availability for two wheelchairs, though we were able to send other vehicles that did have more. So it was quite a team effort, a very large request, the largest that we've been requested since I've been supporting these types of things. So then we had to go as far as Lompoc to drop off some of these residents. Gold Coast had to refuel on their way there. So it was quite an undertaking. And I just really want to thank all of the operators. Everyone worked together really, really well. It's quite an undertaking, and I think we all pulled it off quite quickly, got there as quickly as we could in order to safely evacuate these people. So just want to thank all the operators.
Thank you, Claire. And just to follow up on that, I think our partnership, VCTC's partnership with the county, especially in the Emergency Operations Committee, having a permanent transportation seat in that, having been there myself many times, I think it really just speaks to how well we work together in Ventura County. I mean, obviously, this unprecedented event in Los Angeles County is testing and stretching the response when these type of tragedies happen. But it does make me grateful that we wrote a transportation emergency preparedness plan several years ago now, and partnered with Santa Barbara County. And actually, Aaron Bonfilio from SBCAG is visiting us today. He was part of writing that. Very timely document now, and each year we build on that and make it better by learning from the lessons of these kind of tragedies we have. So we'll continue to work closely with that, and I just want to acknowledge the transit team and again all our partners at the county. So with that, I'll go to the next item, which is kind of a bittersweet one for me. not to try to stay composed here. I've had the honor of managing people now for almost 30 years, and worked for several different organizations, nonprofit, MTD in Santa Barbara County, City of Oxnard. They were all special in their own way. They all had good budgets in their own way, but I'm a little biased to VCTC's budget because even before I worked here, I looked at it and said, this is a great document. It's very transparent. It's very clear. It makes a lot of sense. And that is largely attributable to Sally DeGeorge, our finance director, who will be retiring February 4th. This is her last commission meeting, and I just wanted to take a moment in my executive director's report update. I've shared this news with you already, so I've been trying to digest it for the last 3 months. I appreciate Sally giving me 3 months, but I wish her the best in her retirement, and I thank her for leaving us such a great budget framework to work from. It won't be easy. We got a big recruitment going. I joke with her. She said it before. Nobody's indispensable or irreplaceable in an organization, but Sally comes about as close as you can to that. So I just wanted to again acknowledge her, and if she would like, Sally, would you like to make a few comments to the commission before you leave at the mic?
Thank you for indulging me for a few minutes to talk. I did write a few things, and so I'm going to already go off script, which I'm good at doing. But just a fun fact that's not in my few notes I wanted to put. When I first started at VCTC, we were a much smaller commission, and 7 was how many commissioners we had for a full quorum. So I guess I've come full circle as far as talking to the commission. But seriously, I want to thank you for being able to say a few words. I have been here just shy of 30 years. It's hard to believe. I probably was like 2 when I started, maybe add another digit past that. But it's been an amazing journey where I've learned a lot of things over the years. Just to give you a little perspective, when I was hired in 1995, this was a new position for VCTC. They were using an outside bookkeeper. So one of the things I had to do was unwind what the bookkeeper was doing. One of the first things I found was, unfortunately, we were paying for things that we weren't even utilizing. So I did save the commission money right away. Unfortunately, within a month or 2, I also found that the bookkeeper hadn't been doing our payroll taxes correctly. So then we owed some money to the IRS. But it all worked out, and it's all been good since then. But when I started, I was literally handed about 15 boxes and told to go buy a computer and some software. And therefore, that began my time of figuring it out, doing research to make it work. The budget was approximately $28 million. The Vista bus service had started about the year before I started. The Santa Paula branch line, not my fault, was being purchased as I started. I think within my first 6 months, Caltrans sent us a check for $8 million, and that was the largest check I'd ever held in my life. And with my hiring, the employees went up to about 12 employees. Now, over the last 30 years, VCTC staff has doubled in size. We've successfully, and I don't take credit for this, but we've successfully implemented and ran many studies and projects. The budget with this year, with the SB 125 money, our budget has increased over about 800% to over $200 million this year. And VCTC, it still runs buses and still deals with the branch line and rail services in Ventura County. There have been a lot of changes in accounting since I've started. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GASB, some of you may have heard of. When I started, there were 28 standards. Now there's over 100 that we have to follow. And it's not as simple as one thing per standards. There's a lot in there. And I can't even begin to count all the state and federal changes that have happened. And this is my long way of letting you know that I've seen a lot of changes in my tenure with VCTC. And I've survived, and I mean survived, 3 executive directors. They have all been different, and they've given me challenges and brought different strengths to VCTC. I'm grateful to each one of them, though, for the things that they've taught me and the benefits that they've brought VCTC in our county. I just want to give a nod to each one of them because they were impactful, not only to myself, but again to the county. Ginger Girardi was a force to be reckoned with for all of those who might know her. But she did have an uncanny knack of looking at a summary of numbers and knowing that something was amiss. She taught me to take a step back and to look at the whole and to evaluate what the numbers really meant, not something that accountants always do. Darren Kettle came in with his own perspective. Among his desires was that the budget be more informative. This allowed me to revamp the budget book to the beginnings of what we have now. I was able to update the accounting format to realign with the Government Finance Association's best practices, and we were able to finally start submitting our financial statements for awards, which we have received for the last 16 years. Martin Erickson worked with the Commission to set strategic goals for VCTC. These plans guide VCTC's work and further revamped our budget process and finally allowed VCTC to submit our wonderful budget to be eligible for awards as well. And I'm happy to say that VCTC's budget has won awards the last 4 years that we've submitted. I really want to thank all of the commissioners who I have served with. There are too many commissioners to thank individually, but some of you have really impacted my life. Many of you have served on the Finance Committee, and I especially want to thank you for that extra time and service that you've given to us. You've asked tough questions at times, but I appreciate those questions over the years. You've kept me on my toes and held VCTC accountable to the citizens of Ventura County. You've helped me to prepare a more transparent budget with your questions and provided useful information that I thank you for, not only as your finance director, but as a public citizen. Please keep reading the financial reports and the budgets and asking those questions. And if you will indulge me just a little bit longer, I would especially like to thank my staff. I wasn't going to get emotional, but I love my staff. You have some wonderful people working for VCTC, and I would like to bring them to your attention. My many, many thanks to Tal Lee, the VCTC accounting manager, who has worked for VCTC for 9 years. She has been an exceptional accountant who has helped me in numerous ways. She is often behind the scenes, but is a strong asset to VCTC. Tal, I can't thank you enough. Thank you to Steve Effner, VCTC's manager of IT, who keeps everything running smoothly and makes us all look better. Steve has been with VCTC for almost 18 years, the last 5 years with my department, and thank you for your patience and flexibility. To Daisy Contreras, one of VCTC's senior accountants. She's been part of our team for about 1.5 years, but has stepped up and is willing to learn all things we ask of her. And also to Mel Ramos, who's only been with us for a couple of months, but immediately dug right in and has helped VCTC in many ways. Thank you again to the Commission for all your support over the years. Thank you for the opportunity and the honor to serve and the wonderful people that I have had the opportunity to work with. I wish the agency the best of luck as they continue with all their exciting projects. Thank you one last time.
And thank you, Sally. And before you sit down, can we get a quick picture of you, me, with the vice chair and chair?
Yeah.
So, Darren, do you mind? I know.
Taking a picture, and Sally, if I could just say, it's I think all of us hear from you several times annually as we go through our budget process in the spring. But you mentioned it. For those of us who've had the chance to work with you on the finance and admin committee, we get to work with you on a more intimate level. And I think in those settings when I've truly recognized that you really are the cream of the crop. I work with a lot of finance and budget people, and the budgets you put together, the way you can explain them and dumb them down for people like me, it's just incredible. And I think that's evidenced by just these, year after year getting these awards that you mentioned. So I don't think we can thank you enough as a commission. We wish you the best in retirement with your husband, and you leave big shoes to fill, but we're just so appreciative of your nearly 30 years of service to VCTC and the residents of Ventura County. we get congratulations in the back? Yeah. Now it's the pressure gauge pictures.
Thank, for, thanks again, Sally, and happy trails. She'll still be with us till the end of the month and one more day into February. That concludes my executive director's report. We are still short of a quorum, but we could go to Chair Levere to commissioners' reports. Oh, and actually, we can.
Commissioner Tremblay?
Oh, excuse me. Sorry.
I would love that. Please. Yes.
My career. The knowledge that you bring, the transparency that you bring, your demeanor, and your enthusiasm for your work are a model for people. And I am so grateful to have had the chance to work with you. And I have only one question for you. And that is, based on the picture on the board in front of us, I just want to know where you guys are going to travel to. And you don't have to answer unless you want to. Thank you for everything that you've done for VCTC. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Tony. And I think we just got quorum. We'll put him on the spot as he finds his seat. But for the commissioners present, I would like to introduce you to our newest member. Over there on the left, taking his seat as we watch, is Louis MacArthur, who is the new mayor of Oxnard and will be joining us as a VCTC commissioner representing the great city of Oxnard. So welcome, Louis. We're excited to have you.
Thank you for being late. There was a mix-up with the time. So forgive me for that. I had it for 10 o'clock.
Oh, well, we appreciate you being here. Yeah. So with that, Steve, can we take roll call? Madam Clerk?
Chair Levere,
Here.
Vice Chair Judge, Commissioner Crosswhite,
Here.
Commissioner Chavez, Commissioner Engler,
Here.
Commissioner MacArthur,
Here.
Commissioner Parvin, Commissioner Tremblay,
Here.
Commissioner White.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any public speakers signed up for non-agenda items?
We do not have any public speakers for non-agenda items.
Okay. While we have quorum, why don't we go through and do our consent calendar while we're able. That's items 9A through 9J. Would any of my colleagues like to pull an item, ask questions, or if not, we can take action?
Mr. Chair, move consent.
Motion by Commissioner Tremblay, second by Commissioner Chavez. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, That passes. And Mr. Erickson, should we maybe do item 12, our other action item? Just while, or do you have a preference on moving forward now?
I think we're going to be okay with quorum
Okay.
now that we have 9.
Okay.
So I think we can stay with the regular
Okay.
agenda.
Okay. Are there any, do any of my colleagues have commissioner comments they'd like to make? Commissioner Chavez?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to, some may or may not know, but every 4 years, the term for the appointed positions comes up, and then we go, for my position as the city's representative, I go ahead again in front of the city selection committee to determine if I get reappointed or not. So I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about my 4 years that I've been here real quick. We established the priority and strategies for VCTC, which was amazing. We hired a new executive director. We started the TIES project to try to determine what Ventura County's future with public transit is going to look like. Weekend service with Metrolink, offering service from Oxnard or Moore Park up to LA, and then we expanded it. Then we got the co-ride share, and we're just seeing a lot of great things. I know during my times, I probably rubbed a couple of commissioners wrong with my passion on certain projects and items that have come up, because my priority has always been looking at the average individual and those that are so dependent on public transit and how it affects their daily lives each and every day. I do want to say thank you to all the commissioners, the current commissioners I served with when I first got onto the commission, and then they got replaced. And thank you to the entire staff. Unfortunately, this will be my last meeting, as I will not be seeking reappointment. There are some projects that are taking place at work, and I'm being tapped to take on those projects. And so my time will be redirected to those. I have truly enjoyed every moment of serving on this commission, working alongside with all of the cities, the supervisors. I'm very appreciative to Commissioner Tremblay when I was the alternate on Metrolink. You know, I think it was like before we even had our first Metrolink meeting, we had a phone call, we discussed things. He really took me under his wing and tried to bring me up to speed as much as possible. There's just a lot to digest when it comes to Metrolink and rail in general. But I'm very appreciative of that. I'm appreciative of our entire staff here, Mr. Erickson, for the simple fact that not once did I ever feel that I was less than any of the elected officials. I was always treated equal, and I appreciate that. It has truly been an honor to be able to serve on this commission, to represent all 10 cities, to have the trust from all the mayors. Commissioner Parvin was one of those votes for me when she was the mayor of Moore Park, so I'm very appreciative of that. And thank you. It has truly been an honor, and I look forward to seeing what happens with VCTC, with transit in general in Ventura County. I am gonna miss the fact that I don't have a time limit when I speak. So, but we'll see. I guess I'll just have to practice 3 minutes. But I just wanted to take that. I don't mean to take your thunder, Sally, but thank you all very much. I truly appreciate it.
Commissioner Chavez, thank you for mentioning that. I wasn't aware that you weren't reapplying, but you know, we have 2 citizen representatives, Commissioner White, Commissioner Chavez, and both of you are just incredible additions to this body. You really contribute so much, and you, Commissioner Chavez, it's been 4 years, and you're very articulate, you're very engaged, I mean, as citizen representatives, you both have a lot going on, and this is a big time commitment serving on VCTC. So the fact that you're serving your community in this way and you're so engaged and so involved and so really beneficial to the work we do, I appreciate that. And thank you for the last 4 years.
And Chair Levere, if I could just add, I also was, I didn't realize you, I was expecting that that you might be on another 4 years, but I just want to personally thank you for being part of the commission the last 4 years. I know you've also served as a planning commissioner in Oxnard, which is no small time commitment either. But I think with your transit background, you brought a perspective that was always helpful to us, and I appreciate how engaged you were both on bus and rail issues. And I know you'll still be following VCTC and Gold Coast, but again, I just wanted to thank you for being on the commission and look forward to staying in touch.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. It's kind of a point of personal privilege, if that's okay, since Commissioner Chavez called me out. But I want to express my appreciation for you, and I've thoroughly enjoyed working with you. You embraced the Metrolink assignment. You're, as our chair said, highly engaged. I think all the people, it's funny, I think all the people in this room recognize what devotion to public service is. I think if we're out there on the street, sometimes people scratch their heads and go, gee, why are you spending all of this time relative to serving the public? And I think all of us in here get that. And I think you exemplify that spirit of public service and that devotion to public service. So I want to thank you for all of the time that you've spent when you could otherwise be spending it with your family or on the job, because I know you've got a lot of projects going on. So thanks, Daniel, for all you've done. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I remember the first day that Commissioner Chavez got on the board, and I said, let's take a walk. And so we went out and walked around Hammerville City Hall and talked about what our roles are on this as non-elected officials. And it's really interesting to come in to point what it's like to ride a bus and to represent people who ride buses. And it's so important, I think, to have someone like Daniel. I mean, Commissioner, I'll call you Daniel after this, but Commissioner Chavez, what we bring to this commission. And Daniel, Mr. Chavez, you have been exemplary in bringing that information in. And I think it really opens the eyes of a lot of commissioners here. So thank you for serving. And again, I will call you Daniel after this meeting.
Great. All right. Thank you, everyone.
I have a question.
Please.
I know it says commissioners' comments, but this is a question. It's since the power outage, the most recent power outage, which is going on day 3 for some of us, I've noticed a number of signal lights, whether it's in the county, whether it's in a city, that at nighttime you get to the intersection and people aren't stopping. So from looking at it from a county perspective, I'm wondering if we can coordinate providing information on the reflective tape you can put up on signal lights that would reflect at night when you're driving through our county, whether it's city or county, and I was hoping for Caltrans to be here, but this would be my request, is some kind of coordination between cities and county so that we can ensure when you come to a signal light in our county, you're not gonna, well, maybe you won't be hit by another car. And it probably could save a life if we thought about it ahead of time and did it ahead of time. That would be my question. I don't know what the answer is.
Well, again, with Caltrans not being here, I will provide the best answer I can, but that is a good point, and I think all of us have probably noticed that. I know Anita is here from County Public Works, and I know they have been engaged in improving that and finding ways when signals are out or there is an extended period, whether it's in the city of Oxnard or any of the cities where signals are out for a period of time. But I will certainly convey that back to Director Roberts and her team, and as well as working with all our partners on probably the TTAC would be the best place to bring that as an issue, our Transportation Technical Advisory Committee. But before that, I will reach out to Gloria at the end of before the end of the meeting. But it is, I think, part of our commitment to ongoing traffic safety, which is foundational. And again, we are tested and stressed during these times. So.
Okay.
Sure.
Also, and they are going to provide some generator to the class signal to the council staff will be probably tomorrow today.
Just for the record, that is Anita Balan, who is the county's Director of Roads and Transportation in our Public Works Agency.
I apologize because I should have talked to you before I asked this question publicly, knowing that you're in charge, but it didn't come up until yesterday where this came into, I was driving through cities and counties and there was signal lights out everywhere. So I apologize for that. Traditionally, I would ask you ahead of time, but thank you.
And Chair, with your indulgence, and again, we have a very busy schedules for our agendas, but if Anita and County Public Works staff would like to make a presentation to the full commission at some point in the future, just so then all the other cities will hear it as well as I'm sure they'll be presenting it to the Board of Supervisors. But we're always happy to accommodate that. I'm not trying to give you another presentation to do, but I think it probably would be timely. And again, we have such a close partnership with County Public Works that we'd be happy to facilitate that.
Okay. Thank you. Before we move on to the discussion calendar, did any of my colleagues want to make any additions or revisions to the agenda as posted? Okay, perfect. Okay, so discussion calendar, item 10, starting with our Ventura County Transportation Commission 25-26 legislative program and advocacy policies. Good morning, Ms. Peshka.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Levier. Good morning, Commissioners. I am Darren Peshka. I'm the Program Manager for Government and Community Relations here at VCTC. And this morning I'll be presenting VCTC's proposed state and federal legislative program for consideration. VCTC engages in legislative activity at the state and federal levels to help preserve revenues, to support proposals that we feel would positively affect transportation services, and likewise to oppose proposals that we feel would have a negative impact. The legislative program is a kind of guide. It is intended to provide legislators, their staffs, and the public with a sense of the Commission's overall priorities and to give staff basic direction for legislative involvement. We also have an adopted legislative policy that gives the Executive Director and VCTC staff the authority and flexibility to adopt positions on legislative proposals in a timely manner. Any positions that fall outside of the adopted program will be brought to the Commission for discussion and consideration. And there may also be times when staff brings up a position to the Commission for consideration, even if it generally aligns with the adopted program, if staff feels that the proposed position requires additional attention and discussion. We update our legislative program every 2 years to coincide with the start of the new state and congressional sessions. The program was most recently updated in January of 2023, and the policy was also adopted at that time. Today we'll be talking about the legislative programs. The policy has served VCTC well, and we're not recommending any changes at this time. Sorry, I forgot to advance my slides. Here we go. So the state legislative program probably looks familiar to a lot of you. This is the program that was adopted in 2023, and at this time we're not recommending any changes. The legislative program is intentionally broad, and many of the transportation issues that were of concern 2 years ago at the state level are still of concern today. The overall emphasis of the state legislative program is to protect existing revenues and to support proposals that would increase operations funding for public transportation. The state program also calls for support for proposals to extend regulatory relief that was provided to transit agencies during the pandemic, including the suspension of financial penalties for failure to meet fare box recovery requirements. That regulatory relief is scheduled to end at the end of fiscal year 2025-26. Some of the immediate funding concerns at the state level include ensuring that transit agencies receive the SB 125 funding that was provided in the Budget Act of 2023, uses for LC TOP funding, and that's funding that supports our college ride and our youth ride free programs, and renewal of the state's cap and trade program, which also provides some funding for public transit. That program is scheduled to end in 2030, and potential extension is expected to be a topic of discussion in the legislature this year. VCTC uses multiple avenues to stay engaged with the legislative process, including the services of an advocate in Sacramento, participation in regional groups such as the California Transit Association and Mobility 21, and meetings with members of our state delegation and their staff. Before I move on to federal, I'll note that today is the deadline for the governor to present his budget proposal to the legislature. The governor gave a high-level overview of the budget earlier in the week, but that presentation didn't include details that were specific to transportation. We expect to learn more about the budget later today. CalStat actually has a briefing scheduled for this afternoon, and so we'll be providing an update on the budget at the February meeting. Our federal legislative program also emphasizes protection of existing revenues, namely the reauthorization of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also called IIJA, which is scheduled to expire in 2026. The federal program calls for support of federal transportation grant appropriations continuing at the levels authorized in the current IIJA at a minimum. In addition, the program calls for the continuation of programs that were established under the IIJA, such as Safe Streets and Roads for All and Reconnecting Communities. The federal program also specifies that VCTC will submit appropriations programmatic funding requests, such as community project requests, to our congressional delegation as opportunities arise. Like at the state level, we stay engaged in federal legislative activities through our federal advocates and through participation in organizations such as APTA, the California Transit Association, and Mobility 21. Staff's recommendation today is that the Commission adopt the 2025-26 legislative program. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Peshka. Any questions from the Commission? Commissioner?
Thank you very much, Chair. We had a meeting yesterday with CalVans, California Van Pool, and they handed out some information that I gave to our executive director on legislative updates. And it was very interesting about them changing around hats. Somebody who was a chair is now not a chair and moved around, this kind of thing. And I guess it got me thinking, and one of the things we do with California Van Pool is we go up to Sacramento once a year and sort of let them know who we are. I know they know who we are here at Ventura County Transportation Commission. However, I think it would be important, if possible, to at least meet with some of these new people. Some of them are actually pretty local people, Menlo Park, Santa Monica, Encinitas, and physically go and meet them in their offices and talk a little bit about what some of the concerns are in Ventura County. California is a huge state, and sometimes we get lost in that because we're not Los Angeles or San Francisco. And I just wonder if that's a possibility for somebody from VCTC to do that.
Looks like our executive director is going to take that question.
Thank you, Commissioner White. And it's interesting. I think CalVans is really maybe reflective of one of those organizations that we're part of where, 5-10 years ago, there wasn't seemingly not that much activity, but lately, of course, with the importance of farm worker transportation and other issues like that, it has grown in stature. And I first want to recognize Commissioner White, who has helped that organization, which 6 6, 7 years ago was kind of struggling a little bit in terms of their leadership and their staffing, and they're in a much better place now. But I believe that's something Transit Director Claire Grasty and her staff kind of are very, again, small but mighty staff of VCTC that coordinate with CalVans. But I believe we can find a way to make some site visits there and also coordinate it with other issues. And I also know SBCAG is also a member of CalVans, so we do work with them also, as we have a lot of the same type of issues. So I think that's certainly something we can do and report back to you.
Thank you. It's just so important to have that personal touch. Somebody physically from VCTC to physically meet with the new chair who lives in Menlo Park at his office. And you get that few minutes to do that, and it makes a big difference. It made a huge difference last year when we were up in Sacramento meeting with some of the people up there. And again, like Commissioner Chavez says, let's meet with the people that actually make those decisions. And so I appreciate the time and energy, and thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and if it ends up being me, as soon as the smoke clears, I'll head down to Menlo Park.
Mr. Travis?
Thank you, Ms. Peshka, for the update. I know this may either be a question for you or our finance department, but I know there was some talks about our public safety grants that when we were trying to issue them, there was a little bit uncertainty if funding was going to be available for those because we were still waiting to hear what the governor's budget proposal was going to be. Do you have a response? I know you guys haven't actually seen it yet. We're still waiting to see it, but do we have?
So I'm not quite sure which grant you're referring to, but in general, I can say that I believe anything that was to come through the general fund last year should have been settled by now when the budget was adopted, and then the SB 125 funding, which I mentioned earlier, also came through. I don't know if our executive director is aware of any outstanding.
No, I believe as with almost anything right now at the state and federal level, there's certainly some uncertainty about ongoing funding of programs. At least on the transportation side, and I spoke with Peter DeHaan recently too, where the grants are still moving through and being processed. There is, I will say, quite a bit of consternation about what is going to happen in the upcoming budgets. But at least for the moment of the grants that we are anticipating on the transportation side, those should be coming through. I think what we're probably going to see, and Darren has alluded to this in previous presentations, is there will probably be a larger discussion coming up on the cap and trade funding, and that's something we're watching very closely, because that affects, of course, our college ride and our youth ride free program. So we obviously don't want those to go away. Absolutely. We'd actually love to see them augmented. Don't know if that's going to happen, but that's
Okay, I appreciate that, and yeah, I definitely would want us to keep our pulse when it comes to that LC Top funds, just because of the fact that I mean, Gold Coast has made the comments when Commissioner Johnson was here about that they've seen increases of their ridership with the youth. I'm pretty sure VCTC has seen the increase with ridership, and being able to, engage with new potential riders. Because of the fact that it is free, they're allowed to get on any bus in our county to be able to go recreationally, go to school, go to appointments, go to the grocery store, wherever they need to go. I think it's a huge benefit. And I know other counties are doing it. I don't know if they have the same, obviously they don't have the same constraints that we do, since we don't have that self-helping tax. But at the same time, hopefully we tap into some of that state and federal funding, if possible, to hopefully keep those programs going a lot longer.
And that's why we mention it, and it is certainly something we're keeping an eye on, because we do know that the success of the college ride, and particularly the youth ride free programs, are far more than I think even we anticipated. So those are certainly things we want to keep finding funding for.
Awesome. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Peshka. I know you mentioned it in the staff report, but I appreciate that this is this policy is drafted in such a way that it allows us to be nimble and to act quickly. We know what the priorities of this board are, and so the way it's drafted, it's great because we can act as quickly as needed.
Yeah, once a month meetings make it difficult to bring things for approval, with grants, and we've seen it like that. So to have that flexibility and that authority is really helpful.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Got a first. Chavez moved. Commissioner Parvin second. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Peshka. Item 12, the Ventura County Transportation Model update. Mr. Kent, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Andrew Kent, Program Manager of Transportation Data and Services, and I have a presentation for you on item 11, procuring consultant services to update the Ventura County Transportation Model. The Transportation Modeling Program is one of those programs that does a lot of work in the background, supporting projects across the county, and doesn't often get discussed as a non-public facing program. At the request of the Executive Director, this presentation will expand a bit on the background in the staff report and also provide a high-level overview of the model program and give some additional context for the model update. The Ventura County Transportation Model is a refinement of the SCAG regional model, calibrated for local use, and it is a land use-based scenario planning tool that allows us to simulate weekday trips beginning or ending in Ventura County. It allows us to estimate impacts to traffic volume, congestion, mode split, and allows us to forecast future travel demand on the county road and transit networks. The current version of the model is base year 2016 and baseline forecast year 2040. And we tend to update the model every 5 to 7 years or as needed. In September of 2024, the Commission released a request for proposals soliciting qualified contractors to update the model. In addition to the necessary technical expertise, we also emphasize the importance of a consultant partner with the ability to engage model stakeholders. The update is very much a collaborative process between VCTC and the county and all of the cities, and so the ability to engage all of the jurisdictions across the county was very important to us. The final product will be a comprehensive update to the transportation model, able to meet the needs of all of our partner agencies into the 2030s. So how does the model benefit the county? The model is one of the best examples in practice of the Commission's adopted strategic plan goal A5, leveraging data to better inform transportation land use decision-making. The model, it saves money, reduces costs to partner agencies. We make it available for environmental impact assessments to all of the cities and developers, anybody who needs it for a CEQA project. It supports grant applications for project funds and provides countywide access to data and metrics at a granular level that we wouldn't otherwise have. This slide shows a few of the recent projects that the model has supported. Probably one of the most apropos examples would be the Ojai evacuation scenario planning study. They've been using the model to look at scenarios in which everyone has to essentially leave Ojai at the same time and what that would actually look like in terms of traffic and congestion. And it would also probably be a study that would be good to expand to other parts of the county. I think at this point, just about every jurisdiction has had at least one project that has been supported by our transportation model. Some of them have a project every year. Others, it could be 2 to 3 years. On our website, we've have a page for the model, which provides access to VMT data and other commonly requested data products. We've really endeavored to make the model as accessible as possible. The page also presents a number of web map applications that visualize the model's outputs and allows you to explore transportation patterns in the county. And with this update, we're looking at ways to do this even better, to share and disseminate this information and to make it accessible. So how does the model work? The simplest explanation is land use, demographics, and transportation network data go into the black box, and transportation metrics come out, and that's about all that most people need to know about how the model works. Inside of the black box, the model simulates every trip beginning or ending in the county daily, aggregated to the census tract level. Running one of these models scenarios, the runtime on the VCTC server is about 20 hours, which may seem long until you consider that the model has to simulate over 2 million trips and also trace the journey of 17 million miles on the network generated by the county. So just very quickly, it's a 4-step process that the model goes through to do this, and at each one of these steps, we need data from our partners to update the model. The first step is trip generation. How many trips do we produce? Second is origin destination, connecting, taking those trips and connecting them to destinations. The third is mode split, calculating which mode a traveler will prefer from a particular origin to a particular destination. So will a trip be made by car, or will a traveler take the bus or walk or bike? And then finally, trips are routed on the network, and the final product results in a forecast at the level of individual road segments. And so we get a forecast. We actually get thousands of forecasts for tiny road segments throughout the county. So the model needs to be updated. The current model projections indicate steady growth in VMT and congestion out to 2040. And these projections are based on pre-COVID era assumptions and also demographic expectations from the previous decade. And it's very likely that in its current state, the model is overestimating travel demand for the county. Demographic projections have undergone significant revision across California. SCAG's demographers are now projecting a no population growth scenario for Ventura County out to 2050, which is very significant considering just 5 years ago, the expectation was that we were going to add 100,000 people to the county by 2050. Oh, I didn't realize that was an animation. Sorry about that. So yes, the dotted line was our historical population projection, and the orange line is the revised projection. So they're projecting no growth in population or in employment. As it turns out, the demographers have also revised our employment projections. We were expecting a 14% growth out to 2050 in employment, and now it's basically a flat projection out through 2050. So it's very unlikely that future travel demand congestion will be driven by population or employment growth. And there are other factors which can affect demand, such as new housing construction. That is very location dependent in terms of what effect that can have on either congestion or traffic volumes. Another factor that we need to account for is travel demand post-pandemic. the persistence of remote and hybrid work is another significant break in some of our long-run expectations. From the 2023 ACS, we can see that the number of hybrid and work-from-home workers has more than doubled from the pre-COVID reporting. And the effect of this is that we've seen a persistence of reduced peak period delays. The blue line here is delays by hour for 2019, and the orange line is delays by hour for 2023. On the other hand, we've also observed an increase in VMT during the midday. Overall, the total amount of travel has remained more or less steady, but we've seen a shift in the time of day, and we suspect that this increase in midday travel is from more Ventura County residents working from home and taking the opportunity to travel during the midday outside of peak periods. And so these are very obviously very important dynamics for us to capture in the update. This slide shows a list of the tasks that need to be completed in order to update the model. And generally, there is just a lot of data that needs to be gathered to build the new base year and forecast scenarios. And we also have to go through a rigorous process of calibration and validation. Staff is recommending ITERIS to the Commission to perform the scope. A proposal evaluation committee awarded them the highest score of 3 proposals received. They have extensive local Ventura County experience. Their engineers performed the previous update, so they also have that going for them. And they have a proposed subconsultant that has done very similar work in the last couple of years for San Bernardino and Orange counties. In this update, we are making an effort to try to expand our stakeholder outreach efforts. From past rounds of attempting to do this, updating the model, the data quality that we've received from the cities has been variable. And we understand that the model is more of a priority for some communities rather than others, and it is a time burden to ask local staff to do this for us, to pull and gather all of this local information together. So we've been strategizing about a few ways that we can do better this time with outreach to all of the cities and all of our partner agencies. We've discussed doing some more educational type presentations, but also giving the locals, the local jurisdictions, more opportunity to tell us what they need and things that we can do better, ways that we can make the data more accessible to them, how we can better serve their workflows. So we're endeavoring to try to make it more of a two-way street. So the recommendation to the board is to authorize the executive director to enter a contract with ITERIS. And in March of 2026, a little over a year from now, staff plans to return to the commission to present new projections and future expectations for travel in Ventura County. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kent. Any questions, starting with Commissioner Crosswhite and then Commissioner Engler?
I have a question in terms of data collection. How are the decisions made around what data sets? I know you're saying that some of it is data that you get directly from the cities, but like I know I saw a presentation just yesterday that I was sitting there thinking, so we asked at the end, like, so where's this, where was this data coming from? And it was coming from 2016. And we're going, okay, a lot has changed since then. And they acknowledged that a lot had changed since then, but it's like, I probably could have come up with as many people as they said still worked in town compared to not. So, because I know that a lot of people are working remotely, for example, in the new development, and that's part of the reason why they live here. And so how is some of that getting, like, how are we even able to quantify any of that?
Well, so to your first point, actually updating all of the data that we need, that is a burden that we put on local staff. And so we will go to all the cities and ask them to bring those data sets up to 2024. That's what we're shooting for our new base year. And that is very time consuming. You know, it's kind of an unfunded mandate. And again, as I mentioned, this works. So some cities provide us exactly what we need. For others, it's a little bit more difficult for them to do that. And so we try to help them out as much as we can. But at the end of the day, we don't always get what we're looking for, honestly.
And then a comment and a suggestion that if there are ways that us as commissioners can help encourage the process or support the process, please let us know, because I know usually we don't know whether or not our respective agencies have passed along the data that was needed. So if there's any ways that we can support that process, please let us know. And then to the point of the overall county population not increasing, that is not true of the Santa Clara Valley.
I should have made that point. That is overall. There are parts of the county that are growing and parts of the county that are projected to have a lower population into the future that are shrinking.
Yeah, because there's definitely been an increase, a notable increase in traffic in the Santa Clara Valley along the 126 with Newhall, with development of Fillmore, with development in Santa Paula. That corridor is definitely more congested than it was just a few years ago. So I just want to make sure that as we have it in mind, that we know that whatever data we need to get, that we work on that so that can be a more accurate model. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair LeVere. And thank you for taking my question. It's great. My question was really how you account for and how do you balance the different amounts of development in different areas. I know Santa Clara Valley has gotten a lot of new housing and everything going in over there. Up on the hill in Thousand Oaks, we're looking at 1 million square feet of commercial and industrial going in sometime in the next 4 or 5 years. How do you balance all those out with your projections, and how granular can you get as far as your recommendations?
So, Commissioner, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by balance out the projections. We will add any new developments that are planned into the base year up to 2024, and then as these projects come up, the individual cities that have those projects or their consultants will add those projects into the model to do a project, no project forecast. And forgive me, I forgot the second part of your question.
I think it's how granular can you be in your projections. The 126 corridor, of course, is going to be impacted by the amount of development going on out there. How is the 101 corridor as we produce more industrial in Thousand Oaks, how is that going to affect the 101 corridor? Can you be granular in those respects?
The model is very granular. We can project down to the level of individual census tracts and individual street segments. How accurate those projections are at that level is very dependent on the quality of the data that we get from all of the local jurisdictions. And I should mention, when we do our validation, we validate at the countywide level. So we take the cities, we take their word for it. Whatever data they give us, that's what we enter into the model to produce these projections. So we also know that accuracy across the county can vary with the data quality. We're not validating every individual jurisdiction, just the overall county during this process.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Kent?
Chair Levere, can I just make
Please.
one comment? I just wanted to acknowledge and recognize Drew. I mean, you've heard him make presentations here before. He's part of Amanda's group along with Caitlin, and he really is a wealth of knowledge for VCTC on this, I think, very important topic. And he's also been very patient with me. I've always encouraged being a lifelong learner, and this was an area kind of I thought I knew a little about, and he's and the more I get into it and the more complex and fascinating it becomes as we work with not only all the cities in the county, but also with the regional agencies, our MPO, SCAG, and how we fit into that. And Drew is so good with this stuff that there's been a few times he's been able to catch some things that I don't want to call the other agencies out, but that they may be missing something and see it, because it's a very fascinating and important area to look at. So we'll be working on further outreach with, I think, with all the cities too, and with the staff to encourage and kind of ask them. I know everybody's busy, but the better data we have coming in, the better product we have that helps all of us. So thank you, Drew.
Yeah, this model's only as good as the data we get. So,
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see this next year. You know, a lot of the cities have some really exciting projects in the pipeline, whether they be residential or commercial. So I think this model is going to be really telling. So I look forward to getting it next March. And thank you for the presentation this morning. Okay, and our last item on the discussion calendar
I think
is.
we have to approve that.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. We have the. Thank you.
I would move approval.
Madam Chair, can I second Commissioner Crossman?
Okay, thank you both. Love having all the support. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or any abstentions? Okay, great. And lastly, item 12, the startup cost agreement for the rail services between Ventura and Santa Barbara counties. Good morning, Ms. Grassley.
Good morning, Commissioners. Claire Grassi, Director of Public Transit. I will be going over the morning rail service to Santa Barbara. So just an overview. In 2018, Losan, who operates the Pacific Surfliner, began operating a train that arrived in Santa Barbara in the morning time frame, allowing people to get to work in Santa Barbara that live in Ventura counties. It was paused due to the pandemic, and after that was not reinstated by Losan due to the low ridership. And while there is certainly ridership in the corridor from Ventura County to Santa Barbara, the train had to leave quite early from LA Union Station and had like 4 something in the morning and had very low ridership in that segment. As you can imagine, when that segment has low ridership, the whole line does pretty poorly. So Losan chose not to reinstate this route. I'll note that we and Santa Barbara County get routine requests for this service to be reinstated. You know, a lot of people really enjoyed the service when it was there, and you know, really are looking forward to it coming back. So we both like to see this service reinstated due to that. But so due to this low ridership, Losan, who has the rights to the slot, directed VCTC and SBCAG to work with Metrolink to begin this service. So in the meantime, we had to determine the feasibility of the service. For Metrolink to run the service long term, we ultimately will need FTA funds to be generated, Federal Transit Administration funds to be generated in order to help support the service. So we spent you know, these past couple years really determining the feasibility from a budget perspective. And while we do have some SB 125 funds, SBCAG has their Measure A funds, there's not enough money in the meantime to get us to the point where FTA funds are generated. So we spend a good amount of time these last couple years determining the feasibility from that perspective, but also it's a complicated situation since Losan is the one who has the rights to the slot and not Metrolink. So got us to the point where we need a startup agreement to move this project forward, but I will kind of add in a additional complication that LoSAN is now interested in running this service again. They do not at this point have the equipment to do so or approval from the state. And I think the state's focus is to primarily reinstate all service south of LA prior to adding additional service north of LA. But LoSAN does own the slot, so these are things that we really need to be working out. And in particular, even if Metrolink is to run the service in the interim, what does that look like in the future? If in the future, if LoSAN runs it, then there's less financial contribution. We may be able to get this service going, hopefully fairly quickly. But there's a lot to be figured out in the meantime. LoSAN, due to their equipment needs, would not be able to run this service prior to 2026, even if they do ultimately run the service. Okay, so I mentioned already a number of the things that we've been doing up to this point, but I mentioned this startup agreement, that's the next step. So for Metrolink to really do the work to put together an operating agreement and all of that, the startup agreement is necessary. SBCAG and VCTC have met with CalSTA, California State Transportation Agency, to identify funds needed. So if Metrolink were to run this service long term, I mentioned that there's additional funding needed to get to us to that point. So we've met with CalSTA to potentially fund that funding gap, and there's some possibilities for that. We mentioned the long-term funding strategy. LoSAN, it sounds like potentially they applied for a federal grant, and if awarded, which sounds like preliminarily that may be the case, they may be able to begin this service in summer of 2026. Without that, it may take longer. And so we recently met with Metrolink and LoSAN regarding the logistics of Metrolink operating this service under the LoSAN slot, which there are additional requirements that come with that are not the same as Metrolink's general requirements because of the agreement that LoSAN has with Union Pacific. So more of that will be to come. So I kind of mentioned plenty of this already, but so we would like the service to start sooner than summer of 2026. There's congestion along the corridor, and so working with LoSAN, that's really kind of the next step here. So I will mention too the funding principle between VCTC and SBCAG. We are planning to split the cost of the startup agreement and the cost of the first year of service. There is funding for 2 years of service, though we, VCTC, don't have enough funds to split it evenly for the second year of service. That may be a moot point, depending on when LoSAN is able to implement service. And so CalSTA's direction is to apply for discretionary grants if Metrolink is to run this service in the long run. So I think you can tell it's quite complicated and a lot of moving parts, which is why it's taken us quite a while to even get to this point here. And there's quite a bit for us to figure out, and it will be a tight timeline in order to get this service running in the fall. But before you is an agreement between VCTC, SBCAG, and Metrolink for a startup agreement. So the main things that will be conducted as part of this startup agreement is finalizing the reimbursement agreement for the operations of the service. There's also an operating agreement that needs to be completed. LoSAN, we have to negotiate with LoSAN in particular, but Union Pacific as well. Of course, they have to train the crews and have the equipment ready to go. There's marketing and promotional activities, And so this agreement is what we are asking you to approve today, which is necessary to work on all of the pieces to get this service up and running, hopefully with the goal of in fall of 2025, as well as determining the ultimate path forward. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Grasty. Any questions? Commissioner Chavez and then Commissioner Tremblay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Tremblay. Thank you for the presentation. I have a number of questions because it's still a little bit of confusion for me on how exactly this is supposed to work. And maybe you can clarify. The whole purpose of MetroLink is to service their area, Orange County, San Bernardino, Riverside, Ventura County, LA County. Those are the 5 agencies that are part of MetroLink. Now we're potentially talking about that MetroLink is going to go into Santa Barbara County to operate this service, whereas Santa Barbara County isn't part of that organizational group. So I'll stop there and ask the question is, how does that component work? Because now essentially MetroLink is going outside of their service area to provide service elsewhere.
Sure. So the structure is for it to work as like a third-party recollectible. So similar to the Aero service that's in San Bernardino, that all of those costs happen outside of the MetroLink budget, and it will happen the same way. There is some precedence for service to run outside of the 5 counties. Service does go into San Diego County. This is a little bit of a different situation, and I would say that situation is not loved by all member agencies anyway. So, there are concerns on the part of some of the member agencies that will also be kind of hashed out through this startup agreement as well. But it will be handled outside of the MetroLink budget. If this is a longer term, it goes beyond the pilot. MetroLink ultimately runs a service long term, especially if SBCAG is looking for additional service. They would likely join the JPA. But if it's on a pilot basis, then it would just be handled outside of the MetroLink budget as part of this third-party recollectible agreement.
So since it's going to be operating outside of the regular MetroLink budget, which budget is going to be monitoring and be accountable for the funding that or the payments that are being paid out for this?
So MetroLink is still responsible for this, just as they are, the Aero budget as well. It just happens, independently of their regular budget for the existing service that the 5 member agencies do. So it is still reviewed by the MetroLink board, and just as we are paying for the service here, and VCTC reviews the funds that we pay to MetroLink now, it would happen the same way. We would, as part of the VCTC budget, it would be included in our regular VCTC budget, wouldn't be split out. But from the MetroLink perspective, they would vote on it separately from their regular budget, just as the Aero budget is today.
Now, with this additional trip or service that's going to be provided to Santa Barbara, is this an extension of already an existing trip that MetroLink provides through Ventura County, or are we looking at an additional service that's going to be provided to Ventura County that goes up to Santa Barbara?
I think ultimately it's likely it will be interlined into some routes, more or less. So there's already a trip that goes from Union Station to Moore Park, and I think I maybe failed to mention that this service would begin in Moore Park and service Moore Park, Camarillo, Oxnard on the downtown Ventura station before traveling up to Santa Barbara County. So there is now an existing train that goes from Union Station and Moore Park and to Moore Park in the evening, and it lays over there at night and starts its trip in the morning. That trip that is already in service, this later evening train, would, instead of returning to LA in the morning, it would then turn into this train, this one round trip that would go up to Santa Barbara County. And then when it comes back, it will, what my understanding is that it will turn into an existing MetroLink trip today. So it will just be interlined more, I guess that maybe isn't exactly the proper way to describe it, but turn into an existing trip that is already leaving from Moore Park today.
Okay, so we're not looking at any additional trips. We're just looking at extensions of what's already existing. But now it just gets to go up to Santa Barbara.
That's yes.
And if I could just add really quickly, Claire described it, I think, perfectly. But one of the challenges when the service was running previously on Lausanne is the train had to originate from Union Station very early in the morning. It was chronically late due to the many potential stops and time issues that affected it. So the train running from Moore Park, where, as you know, there's a Metrolink layover station, should hopefully improve the on-time performance. So,
now, how early are we anticipating this trip to start? Because then I started thinking, okay, well, if the Lausanne train was starting at Union Station and they were seeing late service, they were seeing low ridership, right, which, and I think you mentioned that it was like at 4:30 in the morning. I mean, I get it, people need to travel and they're using the rail service, but I mean, timing does play an impact on how you're going to get your ridership. So earlier trips are actually going to have a smaller ridership versus something that's during those actual peak time.
Yes, that's a great point, and Aaron probably remembers the time a little bit better than I do because I don't have it written down. But yes, so that's a great point. This early morning train leaving Union Station had to leave so early because the train is essentially swimming upstream, right? So the travel pattern is all these trains coming from Ventura County going into LA. It's hard for a train to go the other direction along the single track that we have in Ventura County. So that's one reason why it left so early. And yes, it arrived to Santa Barbara about 7 in the morning or so. And it was very early. People were happy to have a train, but that was the complaint that we routinely got, was that this service was too early. This new service would arrive around 8 o'clock, a much more conducive time to travel patterns. Can't remember exactly the time that it arrives, but it gets you in there in time for about the 8 o'clock time period, as opposed to the previous train that got you there around 7, a little earlier.
Now, and I'm assuming that since Metrolink is part of these conversations, that they are going to have a sufficient amount of equipment, of staff to be able to operate the regular service, but then the additional trips up to Santa Barbara, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yes, they have the equipment available and they would be able to have the crews available.
And then just final question is just to clarify the funding, how it's being broken down. Who's paying the majority? Is it SBK? Is it VCTC for this additional trips?
For the first year of service, we will be splitting it equally, so 50-50. If we need to, in the future, run an additional year, it's likely SBCAG would have to pay more than VCTC because we have less funds than they do, but that would be determined as we move forward as part of the negotiations. But for all intents and purposes, it's looking more likely that Lausanne would run the service long term, and so that may be a moot point. But for this startup agreement and for the first year of service, we expect to split the cost evenly.
Okay, I lied. There was another question. If we do the startup, Metrolink starts running it temporarily, is there a possibility for Lausanne to come in and bully their way into taking over the service?
I don't think that it would be possible for them to begin this service prior to summer 2026, no matter the case. So they are eager to I think, begin this service. But I think there is not exactly cohesion among Lausanne and the state. So there's many things that would need to be determined. But they certainly will not have the equipment available prior to that. And it could certainly take longer than that as well. So I think all of that will unfold, and is part of the reason why it's taken us so long to get here is we've heard differing direction from Lausanne and from the state. And so it wouldn't be possible prior to summer 2026, but it is possible that there could be some wrenches thrown in.
I appreciate it. I will just say that, obviously public transportation is important for everybody and being able to get from point A to point B. I know we have our Coastal Express that's operated by VCTC. And this is just that extra option for our riders that are transit dependent. So I like the idea. I'm curious to see how it plays out, but I do like the idea. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Tremblay?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Claire, good presentation. I'm sitting here reflecting on the fact that you use the term moving parts, and I think that's probably both literal as well as figurative in terms of the players involved. But let me just focus for a minute on LoSAN. And by the way, I would remember too, Mr. Chair, we had a primary representative to LoSAN, Commissioner McDonald, who's no longer with us. Our alternate is Commissioner White. So we need to give some thought in the future soon on who our representatives are formally on a go-forward basis for LoSAN.
Yeah, we have a couple other vacancies too. I was going to ask Martin if that was going to be on our February agenda, making those formal appointments and reappointments.
Right, and I don't want to get in trouble with Mr. Mattis, so I won't go any further with that discussion. I just wanted to note it because I didn't
I'll
want
just
Mr.
add
Mattis
that,
to give me the
I'll just add that it will be because
But
there's some new slots we have to fill.
Okay. But so I don't get in any further trouble with Mr. Mattis. Claire, can you focus in for a minute though with respect to LoSAN? LoSAN, if I understand it correctly, basically owns that slot. I mean, I understand Union Pacific's role, et cetera. But in order to do the startup agreement, LoSAN would in effect have to be saying, LoSAN would allow Metrolink to, at least on an interim basis, operate that slot, correct?
That's exactly correct. It works as basically a sublease. So LoSAN has the agreement with Union Pacific. We would not enter into an agreement with Union Pacific. We would enter in directly to Metrolink would enter into an agreement directly with LoSAN for their slot. So you have it exactly correct.
To your knowledge, what financial consideration, if any, is LoSAN requesting in exchange for providing that consent, even on an interim basis?
So
at least to the best of your knowledge at this point.
That's a great question. We discussed it briefly very recently, and no dollar amount. We do know that there are some requirements that will need to take place that LoSAN is subject to report to Union Pacific as stipulated by their agreement. So there will be some work on LoSAN's part. I don't know any sort of dollar amount. I think it's fairly minimal work, but yes, I think they will be looking for some, whether it's reimbursement or a cut of the fares. SBCAG has a grant where they pay LoSAN to buy down the fares anyway. So how exactly it's structured is yet to be determined, and the dollar amount. But there are some requirements that LoSAN staff will have to do.
And Mr. Chair, one more question, if I may. To your knowledge, is LoSAN indicating in any way that it needs any additional statutory authorization or authorization under its existing operating agreements in order to provide this interim consent?
No, that has not been communicated to us. I don't expect that.
So we would anticipate that they can do this within their existing authorization, legal authorizations.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
As we were talking about this, it just occurred to me. I don't know. Do we know that if Blackshear's SB 1098 that was going to have the changes to LoSAN, did that get signed by the governor? Do we know what happened with that? And does that impact this at all?
Yes, it did get signed. No, it doesn't impact this necessarily. I think there's maybe more interest in this service on the part of both, the legislature as well as CalSTA. So I think there's more interest in it, but no, it doesn't directly impact this necessarily.
Sorry. Okay, I know we do have one public speaker, so I don't want to forget about that. So if I could ask Mr. Bonfilio, who's here with SB CAG, to provide some comments.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chair, honorable members of the commission. For the record, my name is Aaron Bonfilio. I am from SB CAG, the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments, and the Director of Multimodal Programs, effectively Claire's counterpart. I just wanted to thank the commission and staff for taking this item for action today. And I'd be happy to answer any questions after I'm done speaking. But effectively, we would like to just suggest, to reiterate our strong support for this item. While it is just the first step in the process, it is a necessary step as Los Santa Metrolink have a bit of work to do ahead of potentially operating any service whatsoever. And yes, just to clarify Claire's statements and from an SB CAG perspective, we're very interested in any and all most efficient uses of funds. So if Losan were to operate the service at a lower cost at a later date, we're absolutely eager to see that happen. Losan has been unable to operate it so far due to both state budgetary concerns and the lack of equipment, and that equipment has yet to materialize. So without further ado, we'd like to get the service reinstated. I will add that in 2020, the decennial census change modified the classification for the Santa Barbara urban area from a small UZA to a large UZA. So for the programming folks in the room and for others that are familiar, as a large UZA, that service that would operate under Metrolink's banner as a commuter rail operator would potentially generate Federal Transit Administration funds, and that would be used on the long-term basis to operate the service. And the funds are equal relative to the county line split or where the UZA splits between the counties. So, for example, if the service starts in Montalvo or between Montalvo and Goleta, the amount of funding that would be generated is 50-50 relative to the two agencies. And specifically, or I guess I should say, in general, we're estimating, but based on current formula appropriations, now granted, the new administration and new funding authorization bills can change that, but based on current estimates, it's roughly $2 million per agency per year over the long term, which is effectively what Metrolink has so far proposed in operating the service. Again, Los Santa Metrolink need to negotiate those final terms for the proposal of this service. And if there is a long-term commitment by Metrolink to operate that service, SBCAG is absolutely willing to entertain membership in the JPA, to Commissioner Chavez's question earlier. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Bonfilio. Any further questions for either Aaron or Claire? Okay. Well, then I believe that concludes the presentation. I agree. There's a lot of potential here. It might take some tweaks to get it right. I know we've tried before, and we saw what didn't work last time. We're making those necessary changes, and I do know there's a lot of people living in Ventura County who commute to Santa Barbara for work. So I'm hoping we can really get this right because I believe it's needed. So don't believe there's any other questions. So how about action?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I'd be happy to move the recommended action.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Did you get that, Madam Clerk? Okay, great. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for coming down, Mr. Bonfilio. Mr. Mattis, General Counsel report. Okay, and then Martin, I know we talked about it kind of briefly there, but going through these agency reports, we'll have an item next month to make those necessary appointments. And
correct.
Okay.
We will be replacing some positions that because we had some change in commissioners, so there'll be some opportunities to for commissioners to participate in certain commissions. That'll be part of the February agenda.
And I know the California Association of Council of Governments is the one where we'll absolutely need an appointment. So
right.
One is interested in serving. You can see on the agenda what the current assignments are. So I guess before February, reach out to Martin or your incoming chair, Mr. Judge, with any interest. Okay, so let's do the agency reports. SCAG, Vice Chair Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning and a happy new year, all the commissioners. SCAG Transportation Committee is not meeting this month on our normal day, which would have been last week. So we're going to have a special meeting though on the 30th, just the Transportation Committee, to deal with the approval of the CMA and the STBG funding. They're the newer programs that we're trying to get money for in the SCAG region for transportation. Our next meeting will be in February. I'll have a better update then, but again in February, we're not going to have a transportation meeting. It's going to be all the councils are going to meet, and then we're going to have a regional council meeting. So that's the end of that report there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, MetroLink, Commissioner Tremblay.
No formal report. Stay tuned in February. There is a board workshop that's occurring at the end of a one-day workshop that's occurring at the end of this month. So I'll be reporting back on that at the next meeting.
Okay. Commissioner White, do you have anything for Losan?
Well, we've talked about it a lot today. Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate the interest in it because it is so important. I mentioned the chair a few minutes ago, there's a lot of fluctuation going on down there, if I can use that term, and people are coming and going. So our next meeting will be very interesting to see what happens down the road, but I really support what Claire talked about today and the motion that was brought in, so thank you for that. Other than that, nothing more to talk about right now. Thank you, Chair.
And I know we have nothing for CRCC or CalCog. Any CalVans update?
Yes. Already to me. We met yesterday, actually, and a number of things came up that I thought were very interesting. Just numbers, and I know you love to see numbers, but one of the things I was impressed with is the monthly average of passenger trips that California Van Pool operates is over 38,000 trips, which again tells you a lot of people are using CalVans instead of using their own cars. So if you kind of divide that by 4 or 6 or whatever, how many cars you're getting off the road, I think it's great. A couple of other things that was brought up with CalVans was the electric vehicles that we're looking at purchasing. We may not have to purchase them because of some things that are going on up in Sacramento and how expensive they are. They're 2 to 3 times more expensive than regular vehicles. And so we're taking a look at that and seeing if we can get more of our vans out there that aren't electrical pushed or whatever, and using our gas-powered vehicles to move people around. So that's a discussion we'll be talking to a lot of people about. The other thing that came up, which I felt was kind of interesting, is that there was a lot of people talking about the fires and how they affect everybody and how they affect, obviously, the people that the farm workers that we provide a lot of work for, a lot of travel for. And they were saying, you got to keep your eyes on the road, not on the fires. Just the other day, I was going to a meeting down in Ventura, and this car almost hit me because they were rubbernecking around looking at the fires and the smoke and stuff like this, and they're riding on the freeway. So just a motion to the community to keep their eyes on the road. And the other thing is, monthly I get a report from Jason Jewell, who is with Losan, and it talks about the incidents we have on the train tracks. And I'll use the word incident because you probably all know what I'm talking about. At least monthly, I get a note from Jason talking about an incident that someone had to stop a train, had to get in front of a train, and it's pretty sad, but it's something that where he talks about the idea that if you're not a train, get off the tracks. So it's just important to remember the safety of what's going on with the fires and how people are have been affected by the fires, but also driving around Southern California and just being more aware of what's going on around you, and just being very careful because fires emotionally affect a lot of people. And so it's just important to remember that. So thank you, Chair. That's my report.
And Chair Levere, if I could just follow up on Commissioner White's CalVans report, I wanted to also acknowledge another one of our great team members, Dolores Lopez, who provides staff support for CalVans. among other rail things. She's part of Claire's transit team. And I think, as we noted earlier, the important mission CalVans provides, how that's been increasing. And I think we'll look to have, probably sometime this year, a more detailed presentation to the commission on CalVan's activities, especially some of the recent grants that have come up. So just wanted to note that. Thanks, Dolores.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. That concludes our formal agenda. So we will adjourn today's meeting. Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome, Mayor MacArthur. And we'll see everybody February 7th right back in the library.
We will be back in the library February 7th. We may be going to a new location in March. I will keep you all posted
We hope.
and make sure make sure we get right place and right time. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.